In a world where love turns into a nightmare and darkness takes hold, Black Horror Story presents Possessed Love. Brace yourself for a tale that will send shivers down your spine and leave you questioning the boundaries between love and hell. Subscribe, like, and get ready for a journey into the abyss of supernatural horror. This is the story of Julia and Liam. Years ago, when I was in the prime of my life, I met Liam in high school. I was a shy nerd, and Liam was a popular guy, already boasting a muscular physique at a young age. He excelled in basketball, garnering attention from many girls. One day, he approached me and asked how I was doing. Being the shy person I was, I stammered that I was fine and inquired what was going on. Liam mentioned he had been keeping an eye on me for some time and asked for my number. Blushing, I handed him my number with trembling hands. Was this a prank? Would he call me? Did I look better than I thought? I was completely surprised and couldn't concentrate on school anymore. The day passed slowly, and after a few classes, we finally got to go home. Once home, I constantly checked my phone, hoping for a call or text from Liam. Hours passed without my phone ringing, and I started to lose hope until the magical moment arrived, and my phone did ring. It was indeed Liam calling. If I could go back in time, I would have warned my younger self not to answer, for this call would drastically change my life. How could I have known that from now on, I would walk a path filled with demonic events? I answered, and Liam asked if I was already in bed and how my day was. The conversation went wonderfully, people. As a young girl, I felt tingles all over my body, envisioning a happy life with Liam. After the call, I was so excited that my heart raced in my chest. I sighed with happiness and kissed my phone before putting it away. My parents were strict and didn't know about this. They thought I was too young for a boyfriend, but Liam felt like my soulmate, so I was willing to take this risk. Days went by, and the bond between Liam and me grew stronger. I couldn't get enough of his attention, and I also felt new desires that I hadn't experienced before. Liam was 3 years older than me, and soon asked if I was still a virgin. In my head, I hesitated because, indeed, I was still a virgin. Would Liam not want me anymore? I was insecure about it, so I decided to lie and told Liam that I was no longer a virgin. I admitted that I hadn't done it often, but had been active with my previous partner a few times. Liam found this intriguing, and he started telling me what he wanted to do with me sexually. The idea alone made me nervous because I knew I had lied and had no experience in that area. Liam probably thought he had found a naughty lady, but I wasn't one. I noticed that Liam was increasingly pushing for a meeting to enjoy each other, if you know what I mean. After a few days of contact, I decided to visit him. The bus ride to Liam was exciting, and I was nervous. Liam lived alone with his mother because his father had passed away at a young age. When his mother went out with her friends, Liam had all the space to invite people over. Despite my tough talk to Liam, I knew I was still a virgin, and I knew Liam probably thought today was the day. Once in Liam's room, he started hugging me tightly. Despite my inexperience, it seemed as if I was ready for the moment. He took my hand, looked deep into my eyes, and asked if I was ready to take the next step. Eagerly nodding, I softly said I was ready and nervous. "Will you be gentle with me?" I asked Liam with a soft voice. He gently kissed me on the mouth and assured me not to worry. He removed my panties and began pleasuring me with his tongue. was soaking wet and didn't know what was happening. It felt so good and tender. Eventually, unable to resist any longer, I pulled Liam towards me, and he began penetration. I grabbed his pillow and screamed into it because it hurt a lot. Liam kept thrusting harder and harder until at one point, I asked him to stop. Liam stopped and decided to finish himself on top of me. Once he climaxed, Liam looked at me and asked if I had had intercourse before because there was quite a bit of blood. I could no longer lie and told him the truth. I didn't want to seem like a little girl, so I talked tough and acted like I had experience. But this was my first time. I didn't want to lose you, so I didn't tell the truth. I expected Liam to get angry, but he responded positively, saying it was an honor to deflower me. I was exhausted from the nerves and pain, but at the same time, I was happy that it happened with Liam. He kept complimenting how good I felt, so I had no regrets and felt special, as if I had won the lottery. I felt like a real lady because I had finally had sex. Weeks passed, and in the meantime, we developed something resembling a relationship. We had regular, intimate encounters, and I would sneak out of the house in the evening for Liam to pick me up around the corner. I finally started to enjoy it, and we had sex more and more often. I was so in love that I went along with everything. Liam wanted to do it in the craziest places, and to be honest, I found it incredibly exciting. Liam became possessive, and if anyone so much as looked at me, he could get angry. I received a text message from a male classmate asking if we could work on a school assignment after school. Liam read this message alongside me and became extremely aggressive. I didn't understand and told Liam that there was nothing between me and that classmate, as I wanted no one else. Liam remained silent, and while I was responding to my classmate, I suddenly felt a hand squeezing my throat. I could barely breathe. Liam was strong, and I could hardly move. He pushed me against the wall, staring at me with aggression. It seemed as if Liam was not himself. I cried and begged him to let me go, but he didn't. It was as if he was not entirely in his body, and his eyes turned redder and redder. I tried to kick and punch him when he suddenly stopped squeezing my throat. It was as if he had snapped back to reality, and his face changed back to the sensitive, sweet boy I was used to. The fierce, demonic expression he had a moment ago when strangling me disappeared as quickly as it came. I looked at him, shocked and trembling. What was this? He suddenly became affectionate, apologized, and begged me not to leave him because he didn't know what had possessed him. He didn't understand, he repeated, and assured me that he wouldn't do it again. I found it strange, but at that moment, I was so relieved that he was acting normal again. You must understand, I loved him so much that I quickly forgave him. He tried to make things right with me and did everything to make me feel good again. He succeeded in reassuring me, but somewhere deep down, I was troubled by what had happened. He seemed genuinely possessed by a demon at that moment, all because of such an innocent message. Why did he suddenly become unrecognizable? His face transformed into something I didn't recognize. I saw something demonic in his expression. I went home and kept thinking about it until I fell asleep. I slept deeply that night, but upon waking up, I felt uneasy again and immediately thought about what had happened. I checked my phone and saw that Liam had sent me messages. He apologized again and asked me not to tell anyone. I assured him that I wouldn't tell anyone, but Liam wanted me to give him my word and promise not to do so. I promised Liam not to do it, and that's how we continued with life. Years passed, and Liam and I had a real relationship by now, and everyone was aware of it. He was still extremely jealous, but I had gotten used to it by then. Things were going so well between Liam and me that I decided to move in with him. Liam lived in a different city by then, so I relocated to another city. Everything seemed to be going well since we moved there. I spent a lot of time with Liam. He found a job, so when he came home, he wanted dinner ready. And since I was at home, I didn't mind taking care of it. Liam didn't want me to work and said he would take care of me. He thought it was better for me to handle the household chores, and I accepted that. Since we lived together, I noticed that Liam constantly wanted to be intimate with me. He seemed insatiable, and I got little rest. Liam was always horny, and on days off, we did it several times a day. In the beginning, I found it exciting, but afterward, I began to find it annoying. I was still deeply in love, and I didn't want Liam to cheat on me. I got exhausted, but if I couldn't satisfy his needs, maybe he would go to another woman. Therefore, I constantly allowed it. And there was one evening when he wanted it, and we did it for the umpteenth time. After the act, we both fell asleep, and I had a dream. In my dream, I saw Liam spending a lot of time with a woman. It was a woman I didn't know, but I saw that she had a beautiful figure, and it was evident that Liam was interested in her. I woke up startled and started crying because it didn't feel right at all. Liam was still sleeping beside me, and I didn't want to wake him up. Eventually, Liam woke up, and he saw that something was wrong. He looked at me in shock and asked if something was wrong. I told him I had a strange dream and shared the details with him. Liam looked at me as if I had gone mad and asked me, "Are you seriously getting worried over a stupid dream?" People familiar with black horror stories, you know that facial expression when you're caught, but trying to hide it? I got that vibe from Liam, and it didn't feel right at all. It seemed like he was trying to convince me that my dream meant nothing, and seemed to become aggressive again at a certain point. I was left with an unpleasant feeling and decided not to bring up this dream again. The next morning, we received a call from Liam's mother, Beth, asking if we were at home because she wanted to stop by for a talk. We confirmed that we would be at home that day, and she said she was coming over to speak with us. I found it strange. What could my mother-in-law have to tell us? I began imagining the wildest scenarios in my head. After some time, my mother-in-law arrived and asked us to sit in the living room so she could talk to us. She looked at us with concern and immediately mentioned that she had a terrible dream in which both of us appeared. In her dream, Liam was lying in a bed full of rice, and I was sitting in the same room on a chair as if nothing was wrong. She also said she saw a little boy standing in the room next to Liam's bed, but she couldn't see him clearly. Whenever she tried to look at him, he seemed to disappear. Beth immediately stated that, according to her culture, dreaming about small children is not good news. Dreams involving small children often relate to a child demon, and she was not at ease about it. I didn't know what to make of this information because I wasn't involved in my culture and the paranormal world. Liam seemed uninterested in his mother's dream and didn't react. I found his reaction strange, and it made me uneasy. I asked Beth if this dream might be telling us that I was pregnant. She replied, No, dear, I don't think so. If it were about pregnancy, people usually dream about fish or something in that direction. Dreaming about babies is often associated with the child demon, and that's why I'm so worried. Some time passed, and things weren't going well between Liam and me. We were facing financial difficulties, so we decided to move back to our old neighborhood for a while. We hadn't found a house yet, and miraculously, my parents agreed to let us stay with them temporarily. This gave us some financial relief, and fortunately, I could immediately return to work with my old employer. There was tension between my family and Liam. My parents seemed not to like him, and my grandparents openly expressed that Liam wasn't the right man for me. Everyone remained respectful toward each other, but it was visibly and palpably tense in the house. Liam became increasingly aggressive and started to express that, in his opinion, we had insufficient sexual contact. According to Liam, we should still be doing it daily and everywhere. However, I found that disrespectful, especially because Liam didn't consider my parents. He wanted me to scream loudly, making me feel like my parents could sense what we were doing. Liam also started going out more frequently and would come home the next morning. I confronted him about it because he needed to abide by my parents' rules. We were staying in their house, and such behavior was inappropriate. Liam got angry and began yelling, stating that I was very bold to tell him what to do, and in a fit of rage, he gave me a powerful slap. It was such a massive blow that I fell. No one had ever hit me so hard. He lunged over me and started kissing me. It seemed as if the slap had turned him on, and I pushed him away, telling him I didn't want this. Liam looked at me again with the same red eyes as years ago and said I shouldn't be so bold, and stood up. Since then, Liam had constant fits of anger. He became quite aggressive, and during those moments, I simply didn't recognize him anymore. It was as if he was possessed, like something else took over him, and I became afraid of Liam. I also noticed that he constantly wanted to be intimate with me after such an outburst. The intimacy was not pleasant at all. Liam would go at it so forcefully, as if he intentionally wanted to hurt me. Once he saw that I was in real pain, he would return to his normal self and apologize, as if it was the first time he had done such a thing. This didn't feel right for me. There were many mixed emotions because I loved this guy. I couldn't understand why he had a violent streak. What was the problem? Why was he so aggressive? Did something take possession of him, as it seemed all those times? I knew he didn't use drugs. The only thing he occasionally drank was a beer, but that didn't explain his aggression. Initially, I thought maybe this was part of a relationship. Having a man who occasionally gets aggressive is normal, right, people? Let me know in the comments, and please don't forget to leave a like. Should I tell my family? Should I seek help? I was desperate at that moment. Due to my constant fear, I did everything he wanted. I offered no resistance because I simply didn't dare. Together with Liam, I left home because Liam drove me to work every day. In the car, I got the usual speech from Liam. He apologized for how he treated me the day before, claimed he didn't know what had come over him, and promised never to do it again. Once we arrived at work, he kissed me, and I forgave him again. After a long day at work, Liam picked me up and said I could relax at home today. He would pamper me and cook for me as he used to. It was a delightful day. Black horror family. He cooked deliciously. We watched a movie together. And for once, the day didn't end in unpleasant, intimate contact. We fell asleep that night, cuddling when I woke up in the middle of the night because Liam was holding me tightly. It was so tight that it felt like Liam wanted to crush me. I pulled myself away from Liam and decided to turn around and sleep with my back to him. The next morning, Liam woke up and said, "Julia, how did you sleep?" "I slept terribly," I said. Liam then told me that he felt someone holding him tightly at night, and he couldn't move. He thought I was holding him so tightly, but found it strange, because he didn't know where this strength came from. He tried to break free, but he couldn't, and after praying deeply, he eventually managed to get free. The bedroom also felt very cold, strange, and eerie, as if we weren't alone. A feeling of fear immediately overcame me, which is why I held you so tightly, were Liam's words. He wanted to protect me from whatever was bothering him because he felt very threatened at that moment. I saw a fearful look in his eyes, and I had never seen him so scared before. I tried to reassure him, but I didn't even know what to think about it because I had no understanding of these things. The next night, the same thing happened to Liam again. An entity came to embrace him tightly, again so tightly that he could hardly free himself. This made Liam even more fearful, and I saw his behavior change drastically in the following days. He became even more aggressive than before. It was barely possible to talk to him. It was as if the thing that took over him was just sitting in his body more frequently. I was contemplating leaving him, but my love for him was so immense that I simply couldn't imagine a life without him. So I stayed. I didn't understand why suddenly a demon or entity had entered our lives. What should I do with this? How on earth could I solve this? Months passed, and we found a small new apartment near Liam's parents. Our anniversary was approaching, and I decided to make it a special day. We went out to dinner first, and then enjoyed some drinks at a cocktail bar. We had a fantastic evening, and I felt loved and appreciated by Liam after a long time. The next morning, I woke up and wanted to surprise Liam with breakfast in bed, so I decided to shower early. Normally, I take my time in the shower, but because I wanted to surprise Liam, I finished quickly. Once out of the shower, I suddenly heard whispers from the bathroom. It was Liam's voice. He was speaking in a hushed tone, saying, "Baby, I'm going to shower, and then I'll come to see you in a bit." He never called me baby, so it was clear he wasn't talking to me. Almost immediately after, I heard a female voice through the speaker. "Okay, babe, I can't wait." I couldn't hear everything, but I heard enough to know he was talking to another woman. He probably thought I would take longer in the shower, as I usually did. The whispering continued for a while. I kept hearing him affectionately calling her babe and baby. After hearing enough, I locked myself in the bathroom, turned on the shower again, and started crying. Why was he doing this to me? How long had this been going on? How many others was he doing this with? Liam knocked on the bathroom door after some time and said he also wanted to shower. I opened the door, and with a smile, he mentioned he was still tired from our evening, but had to go see his friends in a bit. Unable to contain myself, I told him I had heard him talking to a woman, and not to fool me. He was going to see that woman, and I was sure of it. As you can guess, Liam acted as if I were crazy, and my sorrow at that moment meant nothing to him. After hearing his conversation, I was convinced he wasn't going to his friends, so I told him he could prove it wasn't true by simply staying home with me. Liam didn't respond, but when I repeated myself, he became aggressive. He grabbed me again and started hitting me with anything he could find in the living room. It got so bad that at one point, I thought he would beat me to death. Liam seemed possessed again. He seemed completely unaware of what he was doing, showing no mercy, and he continued the assault until I couldn't breathe. Even though I screamed for him to stop, it seemed like he didn't hear anything. He was completely in a trance. That thing, I think a demon, seemed to have taken him over again. I couldn't count the times he hit me. Luckily, his mother had just arrived and ran out of the car. Liam paid no attention to our surroundings. This happened with the curtains open, and everyone could see inside. His mother had a key to our house and stormed in, yelling, "What's come over you? Stop! Why are you doing this? Stop it!" I saw Liam's eyes were red again, terrifying to witness. His mother immediately went into a trance. I couldn't understand what was happening to her. She was completely not herself. It seemed as if she were under hypnosis, and Liam seemed to have snapped back to himself. Confused, he looked around, and he also noticed his mother acting strangely, as if an entity had taken over her. What does this mean now? What's happening to this woman? First Liam, and now his mother, raced through my mind. I got chills all over my body, didn't feel well, was extremely scared, and my body hurt from all the blows I had endured. I lay there like a wounded animal, not knowing what to do. After some time, his mother regained her senses and asked me if I was okay. I indicated that I didn't feel well and that I had terrible pain. His mother took me to the bedroom and said she would prepare some food and drinks for me. This wouldn't continue, were her words. The room was cold. People. The window was closed, and it wasn't cold outside. Liam entered the room and didn't look at me. He opened the wardrobe, quickly got dressed, and when I said his name, he immediately stated that I shouldn't fill his head with nonsense now. He claimed to be leaving, and no one could stop him. People. I lay there in an ice-cold room. After everything that had just happened, was Liam going to that woman? I gathered myself, stood up, and said I wouldn't accept him leaving me like trash after everything that had happened. Liam turned around, looked at me, and then walked straight to the door and left. I have never felt so filthy, ugly, and worthless as I did that day. I started doubting myself, wondering what the other girl had that I didn't. The weirdest thoughts went through my head, but I couldn't even bear the thought of living without Liam. I dared not even think about it. I cried for hours until I fell asleep with tears in my eyes. I had a dream that strongly suggested I should leave Liam and not continue with that unhealthy relationship. In the dream, I saw Liam standing by a rock. He came up behind me with a large pillow and tried to smother me with it. I saw the same mean, devilish look on Liam's face that I had seen often when he had those aggressive attacks. In the dream, it was only more evident that he was possessed by a dark entity. His eyes were so frightening that I got goosebumps spontaneously. This was not human. The entity demonstratively showed itself to me and wanted me to know that it was ruining my life. I woke up when Liam came into the room at night. He sat on the edge of the bed and tried to gently hold my hand. I slapped his hand away and told him not to touch me. Liam looked shocked and asked me why I pushed his hand away. I couldn't believe my ears and asked if he was out of his mind. As usual, Liam came up with beautiful words. He said, "Darling, I don't mean it badly. I don't want to lose you, and you're everything I want." There were so many apologies on his lips. I don't know why, but I forgave him again. Dear followers, you won't want to hear this, but after all his apologies, we had sex again. He had just come from another woman. You would think he was satisfied, but no, he wanted sex with me, and I surrendered to his desires and lust. After we had sex, I felt dirty again. Why do I accept this life? I began to pray and asked God to get me out of this rotten situation. He had to guide me to the right path and clear the way for me. I begged God to break all the devilish forces that were only dragging my life backward. Something held me in this painful, unhealthy situation with someone who was possessed by something I couldn't explain. I often got goosebumps when Liam was near me, as if someone had worked on him. It always made me uncomfortable, but because I loved him, I ignored the feeling. I began to realize more and more that supernatural forces were at work because I was very submissive and I had no opinion of my own. I didn't recognize myself anymore and did everything he wanted for weeks. Every time Liam got so aggressive, he seemed to remember little afterward. Something kept taking possession of him, and I was no longer willing to live with it. I deserved better. I started preparing my escape because this couldn't go on any longer. After observing for a week, I took some of my belongings and clothes and fled the house. Unfortunately, I had to leave almost everything behind because I couldn't carry much. I chose not to go to my family because Liam would find me there, and somewhere I knew I would go back with him immediately. Meanwhile, I had found a job, so I had enough money to book a hotel for a few days. I didn't want to know anything about him and didn't want any contact with him at all. I forgot that I still had his sister on social media. Liam sent a message through his sister's account, stating that I should come quickly to pick up my remaining things. I boldly stated that I didn't need my things anymore and that he could give them away or burn them. He then sent a voice message in a commanding tone saying, "Come get your clothes now and make sure you're here quickly." It sounded so devilish that I didn't even respond and immediately blocked the account. That same night, I had another dream. In that dream, I saw Liam again in a demonic appearance coming towards me. He looked terrible. He spoke with beautiful words that I had to come back to him. I refused and resisted, and then I woke up. This made me even more determined not to go back to him. Once back at my parents', I assumed Liam would leave me alone, but nothing could be further from the truth. Suddenly, Liam appeared at the door with his mother and sister. My parents had heard all my stories by then and respectfully told Liam's mother they could leave. They wouldn't let me talk to Liam. The moment Liam's mother turned around to leave, she turned back, and her face was full of tears. My father asked what was going on, and at that moment, she collapsed in front of the door. My parents, being quite engaged in our culture, sensed that something was wrong and that there was black magic present. My father wanted nothing of this in his house, but at the same time, he didn't want to leave her like that. He decided to have her sit in the backyard and mentioned that he would call my uncle, as he and my uncle had helped many people in cultural matters together. When my uncle arrived, things went bad immediately. Liam started shaking, and it seemed like foam wanted to come out of his mouth. I didn't know what was happening, but I shouted immediately that this was what I had been seeing and feeling with Liam all this time. I wasn't scared, but rather incredibly angry at whatever was taking over Liam, and I kept shouting that I hadn't gone crazy. Liam continued shaking, and his mother kept crying. Something was not right with both, I thought then. I looked at my uncle, who was consulting with my father. My uncle called me aside and said that something dark was going on, and I was now involved. Because I was involved, my uncle and father couldn't see everything and couldn't help either. It seems that when something is wrong with your family, you as a voodoo priest can't always help. Someone outside your family must do it. It didn't take long for my father to connect with people who could help, and a man walked into the backyard. He took his tools and said that he had already seen what was going on. A dark family secret would be revealed, said this man. Fearful, I sat there and wondered what I had to do with this. Had I done something wrong in recent years? Had I said something that had brought something upon us? I was currently in shock and didn't know what to do with myself. The priest stood up, put a substance he had just made into Liam's mouth, and said, "What is in the dark will come to light today. Start talking." Liam began shaking again until he suddenly sat silently on the couch, looking down in fear. In a flash, Liam opened his eyes and sat upright. He looked around and said that this wasn't supposed to happen and that he wasn't going anywhere. The priest stood opposite him and said, "Who are you? Tell us who you are and what you're here to do." With a big smile, the demon that was present in Liam's body said that he had no name, but that he was bought to do special work. People from Black Horror Story, please leave a like so our channel can continue to grow before we continue with the end of this story. The demon said that if the priest paid him, he would reveal everything, but the priest didn't agree to this. The priest said he didn't work with demons, and that the demon had to talk now or else endure much pain. The demon laughed and said he wouldn't tell anything until the priest started hitting him with certain attributes. It seemed like these things burned the demon because it was visible that he didn't like it. The demon begged the priest to stop and said he would now tell everything if he would be left alone. People, it turns out Liam's father was not a good man. Liam's father had been in love with Liam's mother for years, but couldn't get her. He decided to go to the cemetery and asked for an entity to help him get the woman he wanted. Liam's mother was unaware of this, but Liam's father had manipulated her by performing a ritual with the food he had given to Liam's mother. It turned out they were in a friend group, and he arranged for the whole group to have dinner at his place. This demon made sure Liam's father got what he wanted, but required an annual ritual to keep him satisfied. When Liam's father passed away, the demon jumped over to Liam. Because Liam was unaware, he knew nothing about an annual ritual that had to be performed. This made the demon angrier and angrier, and he decided to become more and more prominent, I also became involved in the story since the first time I slept with Liam. I was under the enchantment of this demon, making sure I couldn't forget Liam. That's why I forgave Liam so quickly and tolerated everything. I was under a spell and couldn't help it. The priest performed various rituals, and after some time, Liam and his mother regained consciousness. There was still much to be done to remove the demon, but my parents and I didn't want to participate further. The priest decided with Liam's family, and together, they left for Liam's house. I have no contact with Liam anymore, and I don't want to. For me, my love for Liam felt fake for years, and I can't forget that. We are now months ahead, and I have no new boyfriend, nor do I have the desire for one. I hope I can open up to someone again someday, but for now, this is it for me.